Greetings, YouTubers. It's me, Wayman29, and yes, I am getting like Achan. I've done a bazillion videos in the last couple days, but I don't know. Maybe I have free time and I have more to talk about that I want to get out there. I'm gonna be taking some time tonight. I got a really good deal from a book club for $5.95. I got Bart Ehrman's books, all 5 of them. Finally came in the mail. So I'll probably be taking the next couple days off to go through these. He's an agnostic. He wrote Lost Christianities. He has a whole series out. He's the one that wrote Misquoting Jesus, which was awesome. Lost Christianity is awesome, and he knows Greek, Hebrew, all kinds of stuff, and he just got done translating a lot of other texts that were lost and not translated and commonly circulated today. He was able to get those from the Greek and translate those, and he put them in a book that goes with this. I forget the name of it. So I got like 5 books by this guy I got to read, and along with the other authors, my favorite authors, I'm just starting to get into early Christianity, and it's awesome. There's just so much more stuff out there that we never even knew about. And I was on YouTube, and I came across Exomniverse, Xomniverse, Some Evil Things from Biblical Scripture. And it was a rather old video, but since I love stuff like this, one of my Christian brothers came on. I'm not bashing this guy, but personally, this is the issue. This is the issue with... Hang on, my cat wants to come up here. Come on, buddy. Come on. Well, at any rate, this is the issue that I have with proselytizing and doing it to the way that fundamentalist Christians do it today. They forget that people who aren't even Christians know more about the biblical text than even Christians do. They know more background history, and people aren't as uneducated about certain things as they used to be. And just saying because the Bible says so isn't at all an adequate answer, and it annoys me to no end. And if you're gonna base your life and pattern your life after something, I would think that you would take time learning everything you could about that roadmap of life you're gonna be following, and know both the positive and negative aspects. Know both the good parts and the issues that arise with a sacred text. And a lot of times, the issue happens to where they don't do that. They only take the good and try to gloss over the bad. And not the bad. Not only the bad, the inconsistencies, they gloss over. But to me personally, being a Christian is like a relationship. You acknowledge the bad along with the good, and you work it out within yourself and within your brain, and you ask the questions, and you remain looking for the path of truth. I am a Christian because I happen to be brought up in a fundamentalist evangelical background. If I was in India, I would be a Hindu. However, because for most of my younger life I was taught the teachings of Christ, and because I like to think that I follow the sayings of Christ, that would make me a Christian. So, my having to prove Christ actually existed doesn't matter. It's not about whether Christ existed or not. And for me to prove every little thing in the biblical text, some place a lot of emphasis on that, while most do. Me, I don't care. I love the biblical text. I love studying it. I love the literature. I love critiquing text analysis stuff. I love the motifs and the metaphors used, and it's just beautiful, beautiful literature. And reading those things, I can use those motifs and metaphors and see some of that in my own life and say, how does this apply to me personally today? So I can overcome this. What questions were the ancients asking? And what did they have to say about it? And what was their opinion? And you are correct when you say that texts from the Old Testament aren't followed in the New, and that Christ didn't validate. Why don't they follow the whole thing? And that is a very good question. I think that one of the reasons why they don't follow the whole thing is because the writings and the theology of the Apostle Paul, or the texts that were written with Paul's name on it. There's some discrepancies in Thessalonians, the text of Thessalonians, some of those, even though they seem pretty early, some of the earliest Christian documents, there's some issues with whether Paul actually wrote some of those or not. I haven't really got into it all that much yet, as of yet, because I'm just starting with the things that the church tried to stomp out in the pre-organization days. However, Christ, the verses you quoted are most correct, and I think that one of the reasons outside of the Apostle Paul, where as far as killing your neighbor, one of the things that would throw a wrench, I think, I know it appears that I'm stumbling here. I'm trying to put this in a way so to convey it clearly, because I believe that any other explanation, not that mine's overly important, has come short of explaining what you want, what you're asking, and they haven't researched or thought about it or worked through it enough or wrestled with it enough to come to any kind of conclusion. But Christ also says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. I believe it went that way. And your neighbor as yourself. And on these, all the other laws rest. So, if you love your neighbor, I don't think you could go out and slice and dice. And it's my opinion, and I know that the Sermon on the Mount text that you read, he says that he didn't come to destroy the law. However, other things which may have been edited to say that Jesus said, like the Good Samaritan, where the Jews and Samaritans never got along, and then a Samaritan came on one who was robbed, and he takes him in and cares for him. That act of kindness asks who your neighbor is, which is a question that most fundamentalists don't consider. Who is your neighbor? Now, the issue with Deuteronomy, that is a slice and dice text. And what's interesting is, in the time period that it was written, in the ancient Near East, and if you look at some of the ancient Near Eastern texts outside of the biblical text, say for example from the Hittites, the Egyptians, the law codes of Hammurabi, you get the same thing, and it's all slice and dice. And their retaliation to establish the Yahweh cult was so important to the priests that wrote the text, and so important to the priestly caste to secure power and dominance, the Yahwehistic cult dominance, that they made those very strict laws. And all through, especially 1st, 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Samuel, and the setting up, you get the constant, even like Jeremiah, Isaiah, they're constantly going on about people following other gods, because the Yahweh cult was always in competition with the Baal cults, the Canaanite religion, the Marduk, and Babylon, and things like that of the ancient Near East. And so that's what they were writing against, and that's why the laws are so fierce. So the slice and dice, where if one is, seen maybe converting over to Baal, you kill them off. Or a whole city, after the investigation, like you're saying, why would they go in and slice and dice? Because that person would be taboo, and that city would be taboo. So if you look at it like the ancients looked at it, you don't want taboo, because if you're going in the holy war, you want to win. And what happens when you break taboo with Achan? He buried the gold in his tent. Now, Deuteronomy was written either just before the Babylonians in 5 something BC, 560 BC or something, 520 I think it was. You could look that up and correct me. Send me the right year, because I always forget stuff like that. Where Babylon came in, Nebuchadnezzar flattened Jerusalem and took them away. Well, he took away the top 10% of the population, so they weren't totally removed. Just the smart people and the government administrators. So anyways, when they came back, or just before they left, Deuteronomy was written down so those law codes would be preserved. And they believe that, they're not saying for sure, but some scholars feel that Ezra may have had a part in that, because he was a scribe. So all this stuff had to be written down by hand, which was a very long task. So being that in Deuteronomy, where it talks about if those in the other city followed another god, they would be taboo. And when they went to holy war, they had the chance of losing if they allowed taboos to exist within the society. So that's what happens. When Achan hides the gold in the tent, he broke the holy war code. It was taboo. So we get the law code here. And in Judges, they followed it. I believe... no, I apologize. Joshua. They take him out to the valley, him and his whole family, and the whole thing gets lit up. So that's what was going on there. So then you have ancient Near Eastern texts, and you have the Israelis, which is writing, which they're not out of place for their time period, because you read law codes, like I mentioned before, of Hammurabi, and some of the Egyptian law codes, and some of the Babylonian law codes. It's all slice and dice. So that's the reason why Christians don't follow the Old Testament, because a lot of them followed the theology of the Apostle Paul, which they just need to admit doesn't match up to Christ's teachings 100%. However, on the other side of that, some Christians feel they don't need to follow the Old Testament and the laws, because the only thing you need to do is love God with all your heart and your neighbor as yourself. So that takes a lot out of the slicing and dicing. So hopefully I explain this in a more adequate way. And why am I a Christian? Because I happen to follow the teachings. That's important. The teachings of Christ. And a lot of times, the Bible proving everything and proving Christ exists, the teachings and what he said are the things, are the metaphors and the mythology and the motifs that transcend time. It's what he said. It's not who the man was. And that's what upsets the Jews. And that's what upsets some Muslims about it. That the Christians took the man because he was brilliant and tried to deify him and make him equal with a god. It was totally blasphemy. So I could see why they feel that way. And I do not blame them one bit for feeling that way. Bazillions of pages have been written trying to explain the 3 in 1 when really it's clearly polytheistic. And so there you go. Hopefully I answered some of these questions in a better way. And hopefully, this is a rather old video, so I hope you see it. But I just thought I would come on and talk a little bit about that. So take care of YouTube, take care of yourself and each other.